Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're following up on our conversation last week. One of the things that goes along with trust, leaning into trust, we talked about the importance of not leaning into trust too soon. So, how do I know when it is okay to trust? Is a question we get a lot. And you've heard us make this statement many times over the years that we've been podcasting, that consistency over time statement. We thought, let's just get on and do a quick episode around what does consistency over time look like? We want to bullet point some specific things that you can expect, that you absolutely can and I think need to expect as being part of the repair process. And Alana, your point that you made before we hit record, I just wanted to mention, because I think it's a really good point, that every single one of you listening are going to have your own individual steps on the ladder, so to speak. I'm going to go back to that analogy of the trust ladder. I really want to empower each of you to know that you get to determine what each of those ladders, those steps on the ladder are. Like, this is what I need to see you do so that you can be worthy of my trust, my big, amazing, beautiful trust that I gave you. And I would love to encourage each of you to maybe draw out a ladder. My brain's going into like, here's a tool. Here's something you can do. Cause I know you like guys like action items, but draw out a ladder, draw the steps in the ladder. Then next to each one of those steps, I would love for you to include what we're talking about today, but to come up with some of your own. I would love to advocate for you to do that. What do you need? And guess what? It can change. You can change your mind. But what do you need right now as one of those steps on the ladder? Then you can communicate that. You can create a boundary around that. I think that's a great visual for you to maybe do something with, because I know sometimes it's like, oh, that sounded great, but what do I do? So there's a little action item. But today we're just going to go over some very foundational things that you can absolutely require from your partner and watch for their consistency over time. Alana, you want to just read that list off and then we'll break it down?
Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main areas for you to keep an eye on. And before I tell you what these are, I just want to say I have taught these to men's groups multiple times. And usually the feedback is something along the lines of something sarcastic like, oh my gosh, thanks for giving us all the easy ones. And so I'll just put out there what we're about to say is hard emotional work. And we're not talking about just behavior changes, because as you're talking about this ladder, I'm going back in time and I'm thinking, okay, if I heard that assignment, and I actually did something similar to this with my therapist, and I wrote, he needs to, and they were all these behavior changes. He needs to not take his phone in the bathroom. He needs to check in with me this amount of times per day. He needs to do this. And they were all of these behavior changes. And the reality is somebody can do all of the behavior changes and check boxes and still not change.
Mhm.
And so the list we're going to give you really is a deeper level of work, and it's consistency in these deeper level of emotional work that we're looking for. And I want to put out there, this does not happen overnight. This is one of those, for some of them, they're learning how to do this for the first time. And for my betrayed partners, often it's wanted instantly. And of course, because where you've had such a dysregulating and destabilizing event happen in your relationship, I just want to validate, of course, you want all of this and you want all of it right now.
Mhm.
Have to be realistic too, that when we say consistency over time, we're looking for consistent effort and work and repair over time. Rattling off the list really quick is respecting boundaries, accountability, vulnerability, empathy, transparency and honesty, and humility.
I really liked what you said right before you gave this list. These are really important things for the betraying partner to be actively working towards. And I like that you specified that. And in the actively working towards, that's where I think there is and can be a little play, I guess, of individual, like what that looks like for me versus you. And so maybe that's where some of the nuance can come. But for example, one woman might say, I actively working, what would feel good to me right now is I see him in individual and group, where one just might say individual. So that's where I think sometimes I'm just like thinking of a lot of my clients who want to know all the things. What exactly does that look like? Please give yourself some freedom and autonomy to decide for yourself what that looks like specifically right now, knowing that you can change your mind. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's start with, what was the first thing you said? Oh, respecting boundaries. I'm thinking of our last aired conversation on trusting too early. I know I'm putting you on the spot, Alana, but is there one or two boundaries that come to mind for you that validates not like keeping you in a space where you're not trusting too early so that you can be present, connect to you, to watch their feet? What would be like two or three boundaries that you would suggest women might consider early in their recovery that would need to be respected, like we're talking about right now?
Something that comes off the top of my head is one of my very first boundaries, though I didn't know it was a boundary, was I need to be able to have my own space when it becomes too much. And there was a period where he would follow me from room to room because he wanted to fix it right now. He wanted to know where I was right now. And so my boundary for me was I need to be able to be alone if I am too activated. I need to be by myself and I need to get regrounded and then engage again when I'm ready. Now, I didn't phrase it that beautifully. However it came out in the beginning, I guarantee was really choppy and not like that. But in essence, that was one of my first boundaries was I need space to be able to heal. And if he wasn't willing to honor that space, then what was I going to do to create that space?
Yeah.
So that would be one of my first ones. One of my first requests was that he would tell me within a certain amount of time that he it out again. That's one of the most common. And guess what? I can't force him to tell me. I can't force him to be honest. So that's my request. But if I find out that it's beyond that time or he's been lying and hiding, then this is what I am going to do for me. And here's what I'm going to do to establish that safety for myself, which for me was take a night by myself to process and journal and decide what steps I need to make.
Yeah.
So again, that boundary was I will sleep by myself. The request is go sleep somewhere else. But if he's not willing to, I will go sleep somewhere else because boundaries are what I can do. But the respecting boundaries is number one. When I share these boundaries, does he respect that these are the things that I need? Does he ignore them? Does he mock them? Does he make fun of them? Does he tell me that's too much? Does he tell me that makes sense and he will try, but then he still does whatever he wants? Or does he actually respect that I know what I need to heal? And while it is scary or uncomfortable for him, he is still willing to respect what I need to do for me to heal, respecting boundaries.
Now everyone needs to go back and just rewind the last 60 seconds and listen to that again. I am so glad that you just said that. Mainly because I want all of you listening to know that that is absolutely not too much to ask or expect when you are watching to see if this person is willing to repair and put in the work. Your basic boundary requests are not too much. And as you watch their response to your request, just like you said, that is key information. I'm so glad you brought that up.
And here's the thing, going back to when I was going through the betrayal, some of my boundaries made no sense to my partner. And you know what he did? He took them to his therapist. And in the privacy of their session, he said, I don't get what the heck she wants or what she's talking about. Or this scares the out of me. And I don't know if I can give her this. And then they get to process through that and work that out together.
That's doing the work.
That's doing the work.
So yeah, it doesn't mean that they are like, oh, that totally makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but I'm going to go to my person to figure it out so that I know how to support you. That's doing the work. You've said this before. You're like, oh my gosh. I think when we first started working together, and I cannot tell you how many times I have quoted what you just said. So it can't be said enough. I love it. I love it. Okay. So that respective boundaries, I'm just going to add one more to those two that you offered. And you've mentioned this before, Alana. And I think they go hand in hand with the I need to know within 24 hours. I actually just think I told my group last week this one. The if you lie to me, I think you said within 15 minutes, you got to come back and tell me the truth because that really gives space because remember, we're addressing early recovery here. I think it gives space for the betraying partner who is working on their own stuff. And that's a whole other topic. But part of their journey is to become transparent, and their automatic response is going to be deny, deflect. So they will often respond very autonomically. And then they will go in their learning going, oh, wait, I just lied. I need to repair that. I need to backtrack. That's my first way to protect from shame. So giving them some time to rewire that part of their brain, I think is very healthy, very relational, very reasonable. So I want to add that one as a suggestion. I like it.
For sure. And again, it's a request of don't lie to me first. That's a request. And if you do, please tell me within the first 15 minutes. And if you tell me in the first 15 minutes, yes, I'm going to have feelings around that because guess what? I'm human and that's normal. But I'm not going to need to take extra measures to go protect myself and re-regulate. Versus if you don't tell me, and either I find out days later, hours later, or it comes out at some point in the future that you were lying, then I am going to need to do things to protect myself.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that action, not I'm punishing you, but the consequences of that action, the impact of it is going to be so much greater.
It's so much greater on your body when you're lied to and your reality shifted. So yeah. Okay. Sorry. I just wanted to throw that one in there. I love it. Okay. The next one.
Accountability. This one I think gets a little confusing sometimes with partners because it's really common for partners to want to be an accountability partner initially because in being an accountability partner, it feels like you're getting not only the transparency, but you're getting almost the reward or the dopamine of seeing them be accountable. But there's ways that they can be accountable where you don't have to hold that or carry that or take on that weight and responsibility. Because as a betrayed partner, your job is to heal. It's not to be their accountability partner. It's not to hold their stuff right now. It's to do your own healing work. And so accountability actually comes really closely off of transparency and honesty is as they are honest and as they are transparent, then they can come to you after doing their work with their sponsor or their therapist or their coach. And having done all of the hard, yucky work over there, they can come to you and be accountable. Hey, this is what happened. And that's important. But way more important than this is what happened is here's what I'm actively doing to handle it now. And here's my plan for the future. That's accountability.
Yes. And sometimes that looks like maybe give us some quick ideas like check-ins is coming to mind, right? When you can set up check-ins. So that might look like making the request that he checks in with you weekly. And then what does that look like? I know lots of us at Choose have several different check-ins that we suggest, some templates, so to speak. And maybe it's just pulling up one of those. Here's what I'd like to hear. Here's what I need. And then they are accountable for doing that. Not, hey, give me the check-in. Hey, are you going to check in with me? Hey, right there, because you're going to go right back into hypervigilance. You can make their request to help you know the information, but the accountability still falls on them to give it to you.
That piece right there is essential. If they are being accountable, they are leading that of being accountable to you, of sharing with you. And so instead of you having to go do the work to get that information from them, somebody who is being accountable says, hey, here's the information that you need.
Question for you, because as we're talking about this, I've got a couple situations that are coming to my mind because we're talking about consistency over time. I would imagine a lot of women are going, okay, so he's doing that. How long is enough? When do I know that it's been consistent over time? It's been enough time.
I would love if there was one beautiful answer. 'Cause healing takes as long as healing takes. But just with accountability alone, like check-ins, I'll tell partners, you'll know when you don't need it as much as you need it. As you learn to trust yourself and know what you need, it is very normal and common to say, hey, we've been doing check-ins every day, but I actually think maybe weekly is fine. Then maybe at some point it's actually, I think I'm okay for a little bit, but will you please check in with me if there's something I need to know? So there's no one size fits all answer, but I look at that consistency as effort that is continually happening. And the frequency at which it's happening often can shift over time based off of the needs of the individuals and the couple.
Yeah, 100%. I know that was a very tough question to answer because there's so many pieces to that, but I just know women are asking this question. And then one more thing that I feel like women are going to ask, what if I'm getting it and it's not helpful in the check-ins? You're finding that it's reactivating you. It's not bringing you the calm, the peace, the sense of trust that you're looking for. Please reach out to a professional because that does indicate that there's something missing. But again, you get to advocate for yourself of what is needful and what isn't. And if it's not helping you, I've just seen a lot of clients power through. I'm supposed to do the check-in and it's not helping me, but I just need to keep going. So just wanted to speak to that too, that no, if it's not actually helping, then we need to readjust. There's something missing. Get with your professional. Let's figure that out.
Or something that's been added that's not helpful, really honing in on what is needed there. And actually, that kind of can lead in, and I'm going to come back to the empathy and vulnerability in a minute, but that can lead into the transparency and honesty.
Yeah.
But there is a level of transparency and honesty that different people need.
Yeah.
So, what I have found is what client A needs versus client B, as far as transparency goes, can look very different. I have some who are like, tell me every single little detail. I know it's going to be painful. I need it. I don't care. And then I have others who go, for where I am at, I do need to know information, but I don't need the little details because I can never unhear those. So I need to know the basics of the information, but I really need to know what is your plan moving forward.
Mhm.
That transparency, honesty, essential for healing a relationship. And you as a betrayed partner, it's really important for you to spend some time to figure out what would be helpful for you. What would that look like? And there's no wrong answer.
No, there is no wrong answer. This is also where working with a professional can help you determine that for yourself, because I'm just thinking of our full therapeutic disclosures that we do and how we generally do not encourage betrayed partners to ask for nitty-gritty details because it is hard to get images out of your mind or things that aren't helpful. So if you're not quite sure what is helpful or not, then again, please reach out to a professional to help you determine that for yourself. I know for me, there was a time when I wanted every single detail, and I'm so glad that I never got it because it would still be in my brain. But I want to validate what you're saying. There's a time that I think a lot of women want that, knowing when to get that and if it really is right for you. I think there's some really beautiful questions that I know can be asked to help you really determine that. So just wanted to throw that out there. But when we look at the healing pyramid, honesty is at the very bottom. You can't have safety, you can't have trust, you can't have vulnerability or intimacy if we don't have honesty, which is, I guess, to bring up disclosures again, which is why full therapeutic disclosure is so important, an important piece to healing the relationship because it is foundational.
And you look at any 12-step program, step one is honesty. And first, it's the person being honest with themselves and then allowing themselves to be honest with others.
Yeah.
Okay. So, next one is vulnerability. Vulnerability is one of those things that I feel like is a hard concept for people to get at first because they tend to think vulnerability means that I'm just sharing, like I'm just sharing everything. And what true vulnerability usually looks like is you are sharing the parts of yourself that you could be seen in a way that you may get rejected or hurt. So many times when I have either someone with compulsive behaviors and addiction or who has been leading a life of affairs, they have all sorts of protector parts that are so keen on making sure they don't get hurt. So as they learn how to start being vulnerable, they're starting to lean in to letting go of the outcome and letting those parts of themselves be seen and having those protector parts step aside. And this type of work does not usually happen without, it doesn't happen without professional help.
Right. And this is important. I'm really actually glad you approached it this way because what came to my mind is you said there's a difference between sharing everything and being seen. Just wanted to say that again. I think that is so key here. Where I have seen it get muddled is the betrayed partner is saying, well, I'm just being vulnerable with you by telling you everything I'm feeling right now, like I'm being tempted or that woman's really attractive. They're just like sharing everything that they're thinking or feeling, or even about the partner. You're really annoying me right now. I'm just being vulnerable. That is different than I am feeling activated or I'm feeling triggered and I'm going to go use my tools to go help me regulate. But what you're seeing in me right now, by the way I'm responding, is because I'm really activated or because I'm feeling a lot of shame for what I just did. And we're being vulnerable with saying, I did just act out. And that's really vulnerable because I feel a lot of shame around it. Here's what I'm going to do in my tools to help get back on track. But I want you to see me. I want you to see where I'm at right now. And it's sucky. It's not where you expected me to be. That's what I'm viewing as being seen versus, well, let me just tell you all the ways that I'm triggered with you, or you piss me off, or I'm feeling right now. And that's generally speaking what I usually see the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that vulnerability often takes layers of denial to be worked through, even to be able for them to access that for themselves.
Mhm.
So a lot of times they will be vulnerable at one layer and they're like, this is as vulnerable as it gets because there's still a lot of protector parts and denial that's blocking deeper levels of vulnerability. So this really is peeling back the layers
Yeah.
of
And
the
I would say, so I'm thinking of women going like, okay, well, but consistently over time, what does that look like? So maybe what you're saying, maybe that looks like for the betrayed, the partner who is working on learning how to be vulnerable. I think being seen is even just showing up authentically that way. Like, I know that I need to give you more right now, and it's really hard. And I'm going to go work with my person, my therapist, my coach to help get deeper here, but what you're seeing is me really struggling right now. And I don't know how to communicate it, but I'm going to figure out how. But it's coming across really shitty right now. And I know that's being seen. That's vulnerable. I don't want anyone to hear like it needs to look perfect or sound fantastic or not hurt. Being seen is messy a lot of times.
Yeah, you reminded me that something that was so a pattern that was in my relationship was he would shut down emotionally. He would go silent. And that was such a trigger for me of we're doing hard and then he's gone. Like he's physically next to me, but he's gone. And so with time, as he did work, he would say something along the lines of, I'm really quiet. I'm still here with you, but my head is freaking out.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I'm freaking out in my head, but I'm still here. And then we would go in silence for a while longer. And then usually there was some kind of, okay, I have no idea what the right thing to say is, but is it okay if I just talk? Or sometimes it's, I have no idea. I'm freaking out. I'm spinning. If I start talking, I'll probably cause damage. So we might need to come back to this. And guess what? I never liked those answers because I'd be like, no, no, no. I'd like, tell me where you're at. And at the same time, that's my betrayal brain. At the same time, another part of me is, okay, this is healthier. This is good. He's letting me know where he's actually at. He's letting himself be seen.
Okay. Hopefully that helps differentiate.
I'm going to jump to humility
Mhm.
because I feel like to be vulnerable, well, you need humility for all of these, but to be vulnerable requires a level of humility, but especially to step into a place of empathy, which we're saving for last,
Mhm.
because it's the hardest. To have vulnerability or to step into empathy, we really need a place of humility. And this area I see across the board, the person who's betrayed tend to struggle with. Some struggle with it all of the time. Others swing in and out of humility. And so really working on consistency, and humility does not mean you lay down in your doormat and everyone walks all over you. That's not humility. Humility is willing to say, I may not be right, or I may not have the whole picture, or I am willing to set my ego aside to look at what you need or where you're at. I am willing to be influenced. Oh, the Gottmans have a section in their book, Fight Right, on letting yourself be influenced by your partner. And specifically, by the way, side note, that book is not made for betrayal trauma. So it's not made for betrayed partners, but for partners who have done the betraying, letting themselves be influenced is really essential. I'm going to write a lesson for this in our men's groups, our emotional higher up men's groups, because I think it's that important. But that requires a level of humility.
Yeah, because it also, I think, tackles the entitlement that is often attached to this type of behavior. And so, if you can see the shift from an entitled behavior and mentality to this humility where I'm willing to be wrong, I'm willing to see it from your perspective. And I'm glad that we're breaking this down because a lot of times I think humility gets the definition of what that actually looks like gets skewed. I've heard it described as, well, he's crying a lot, so he's humble.
There's a lot of reasons why they could be having feelings and crying. And
Mhm.
it could be humility.
Mhm.
It also could be shame. It could
Mhm.
be a mindset. It
Mhm.
could be grieving and mourning, which is healthy. There's so many different lens through which that can come.
So what would you say then? Because there's some other things that get attached to he's being humble. And how do they really know that humility is being shown versus all the things that you just mentioned there?
Yeah.
This is manipulation.
Sometimes you don't know. I don't like saying that, but sometimes it's over time that you can notice and feel, and also listening to your own body.
Yeah.
Because when genuine humility happens, your body tends to go, okay, this does feel safer. And it may not mean that you're going to jump all in, but you can notice that difference between when the ego is showing up and entitlement and self protection versus when somebody is coming from a state of humility.
Yeah.
And so it is learning how to slow down and learning how to listen to what you're seeing and what you're feeling. And sometimes that will take time.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why we're talking about that consistency over time. This is why trusting too soon doesn't work because you need to know over time if the pattern is changing.
Empathy is, I would say, one of the hardest ones. And I want to give some realistic perspective here that empathy usually is one of the later or last skills that you get. You should be learning and working on it from day one. So this isn't an excuse of we get to ignore empathy and we'll start building it in a few years. But it takes a long time to work through our own protectors, to work through our own childhood traumas, to work through our own insecurities, to work through all of our own stuff, to be able to really see somebody in their pain, not run to shame, to be able to sit with them. And in empathy, you're saying or going to a place within yourself of knowing pain and then being able to see and hear them in their pain. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to fix it. You're seeing them and allowing space for them to be where they're at.
This is it is such a hard one. And I think that every single one of us humans are practicing this to have healthy empathy. I think we have many listeners that are over empathizers because of anxious attachment. I think learning healthy empathy is just such a human skill. I love how Brene Brown breaks this apart into cognitive empathy versus affective empathy. I see, and I don't know if you share this, but I do see a lot of cognitive empathy practiced first, where they're going to say the right things and it sound right, but the woman's going, but it feels like shit still. And that's a lot because they're learning it and they're trying to cognitively have that. And it just takes time, I think, for the affect to show up correctly. Because, like you said, getting our own crap out of the way is part of that. And own crap might be that childhood stuff, family of origin stuff, whatever. I just had an experience not too long ago where someone shared something really intense for them that had to do with a need they needed that wasn't being met for them. And I could see my stuff get in the way. I was aware of it and I'm holding space for both. And I just want to bring normalcy to this. Like it wasn't pretty at all, but I could see my stuff show up and I could see where this person's coming from. And it took a lot of conscious effort and emotional effort to be present for the person and where they're coming from and take my shit out of it for a minute.
And Amy, how long have you been doing recovery work?
Frick, over a decade.
Okay. So this is such an important piece because we have this idea that we'll get to this place where these skills just become easy.
Oh, and I'm so sorry that I'm saying that, but no. And I hope that me saying that gives you some, I really do hope that you just take a sigh of relief and release some pressure that you might be putting on yourself to get it right and arrival or whatever. But no. And yet I really love, even after over a decade, I do see progress and the opportunities I just expressed that I just had, that opportunity helped me heal something that I didn't know needed to be healed. Like that part that showed up, I brought to my therapist and I went, I need to look at this. And we were able to work and heal that. So it's not going to be tied up in a bow with the chocolate and look pretty and taste good all the time. But that was how empathy looks. It's messy, it's clunky, my stuff still shows up. But because I've been doing the work, I was able to notice my stuff, put that aside for a minute and hold space for her pain, her need. And what you said that the Gottman said, her view of me, look at it through her eyes and be curious without defensiveness, entitlement, aggression, all those different things that I think a lot of you women might be getting early on rather than empathy.
So consistency over time with empathy looks like that learning and trying, and often, like you said, starts with the cognitive empathy, but then moves more into the feeling and emotion. And consistency over time does not mean perfection, but it means when there are ruptures in that process that we're repairing it. we're bringing in that humility and the vulnerability and being accountable of not doing it right.
Hmm.
Continual effort to learn how to have empathy.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to end with something that you and I were talking about on our own time. We were validating how amazing our bodies are in truth tellers, and how you and I still consistently get reminded of how incredible it is that our bodies do know. And so I just want to end with this reminder, because I know we've talked about this before, but this reminder that when you're looking for consistency over time, and each of you are going, okay, but how will I know? How will I know that it's happening? Please trust your body. Please do the work individually with a professional to help you get in your body, to help you heal, to help you connect back towards your body, because that's how you're going to know. Those of you that are just like, I don't know what that means, it's so foreign. This get in the body, it's so foreign to feel the body. It's so foreign to know what sensations are coming up to the body. I totally get that. And it's okay. I promise you will learn. You can learn. Work with someone who gets it and who can help you. Keep practicing and you'll get there. But it really is key. Your body will let you know. It's incredible. I don't know why I'm blown away every time, but every time I'm just like, gosh, dang, the body is right. Every time. It's just so cool.
It's a truth teller. That is one thing I love in sessions, is watching what their body tells me that sometimes they don't even realize until we slow down and listen to the body. And I will stop and slow down and listen to my body and learn so much. I forget to listen to my body. And it is this beautiful gift you have of information if we can learn how to, because for a lot of us, we don't know how to. We were never taught to. And so learning how to recognize your body, how to listen to your body, how to honor your body, and how it is a truth teller. The body doesn't lie. And so really learning how to listen to that. As you are honoring your body, as you are looking for those higher levels of consistency over time, again, just a reminder that healing is a process. It will take as long as it needs to take. And as you trust yourself and trust the process and keep putting one foot in the front of the other, healing can happen. So, as always, thank you for hanging out with Amie and I, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Hello. I want to tell you about something we have upcoming that is super exciting, and I will be so fast with this. Or maybe not, because you'll want to hear more, but we have an intensive coming up to heal from betrayal trauma. This is for women who are looking to heal at any stage in your journey, because what we are really going to focus on in this intensive is somatic body healing. And all of our bodies are at different stages in our healing journey. So whether you're on day one and you're just trying to get that stabilization and that balance, or you are 3 and 4 years in and you have this trauma that's still stored in there that you are just trying to figure out, how do I get this out and finally be free of this and move forward? We're tackling all of that. This intensive is not about you going and just sitting and listening to people talk. Because the reality is, you listen to this podcast, you hear people talk, and you can get on YouTube and listen to podcasts and read books and get that information all day long. What you don't get is the opportunity to be with other people who get it. Not only will all of the professionals working on this intensive, which I think there's like 10 of us who are doing this, all doing different parts of this, not only have we all been through our own betrayal, and so you get that first hands-on knowledge, all the other women who are participating have also experienced betrayal. And so you will be surrounded with other people who get it, and then it will be full of experiences. So whether it's a nature hike, or it's trauma yoga, or it's a guided meditation together, and we get to process together and talk about it, or we're doing a sound bath, or we are doing parts work and we're drawing out parts maps and we're sharing them with each other and we're understanding at deeper levels. Everything that you'll be doing in this intensive is experiential. So you will be experiencing healing, not just learning about healing. And it is in the beautiful valley next to huge mountains of Utah. Our office is in Spanish Fork, Utah. We'll be meeting at the office, but we'll also be going up into the mountains for some of it as well. So come join us. Go to chooserecoveryservices.com. We actually have multiple intensives, but this is the one for those of you who listen to this podcast that I think you will find so beneficial and so healing. And we would love to have you join us. So, as always, thanks for hanging out with me just for a minute. I am excited to see you, myself, in person the end of August at the Healing, Revive, and Thrive Intensive.